The driving standards have gotten worse. People need to be banned. We've seen the videos of people doing really ridiculous things. You've been doing this for 10, 12 years now. Is it worse now? Is it the same now? Is it not any worse, but because we have YouTube and Twitch, people could talk about it more? What's the deal? Welcome to what's going to be the first episode of the new Inside the Sim Paddock here. Brand new show here on the Racing Network, and it's going to be exciting. We've done 200 plus episodes of Inside the SCCA, tons of IRL, as the kids say, racing content on this channel, live streams from races, live coverage of races in real life at real racetracks, and the content and the discussions at the racetrack, the discussions on the podcast Inside the SCCA constantly went back to, what do you do on the sim? Oh, I love the sim, or oh, I hate the sim, or the sim is more important to me, or I'm an old guy and I can't figure out the sim, or I'm a young guy and I wouldn't be here without the sim. And almost every show ends up somewhere at the sim. And my sim journey has been remarkably unimpressive, and that's going to change, I think, because it can only go one way. And I decided to get involved and do a podcast, Inside the Sim Paddock. And my superpower is getting people to come on a show and talk about stuff they're passionate about. Turns out it doesn't take much. Just kind of have to ask them. But we're getting ready to get started here and do it again, and I'm really excited about my first guest on the show. He is a guy who has been in the Sim Paddock for, more than a decade now, Jamie? How long?
Yeah.
When did you start?
In terms of what we would traditionally call sim racing, I would say probably 12 years now, something like that.
Cool. 12 years doing this. I have more years, but not a lot of time. Not more years. I have more years than my record shows, my unimpressive record shows. But let's ask you the first question. Every guest on this show, I have to kind of forget that I've done 250 episodes on the other show, Jamie, because I assume people know what they're getting themselves into when they watch the show or think about the show. So since this is the first Inside the Sim Paddock, let the viewers know how this is going to work. Every first-time guest gets the exact same first question. And it's the same question I've asked 250 times on the other show, and it's perfect to get these things started. And that is this. How did you get mixed up in this crazy sport that we love?
Ooh, brilliant question, because there's such a backstory on my end. So my family has always been in and around motorsports. So not necessarily my parents, but my uncle in particular used to race short track ovals in the UK, and was very handy at it. So I used to travel, at least within Northern Ireland, back where I came from, and what I still call home, up and down the country, watching my uncle race from goodness knows what age. Maybe 6 months old, I first experienced short track ovals. Not like high level stuff in terms of like machinery and equipment and facilities, but high level in terms of passion and excitement for just going around a track as fast as you can. So I've always been around it. But unfortunately, I guess my parents didn't ever want me to actually get into a real car myself, or even into karting either. The door was never really open for me to even get my leg up. But I've always played video games,
Right.
Always played racing games. So from, again, 3-4 years of age, Colin McRae Rally on the PS1, the first Formula One games on the PS1, touring car games, you name it. If it had 4 wheels, or even 2 wheels sometimes, and I could get the thing around the track, then I was completely hooked. And yeah, I've never really lost the passion for it. It's always been there. Obviously, it's ebbed and flowed over the years, as with everything. Like as I got into my teenage years, I focused on other things. But in my late teens, early 20s, came back to sim racing, got myself a wheel and pedals, and got stuck in. And
Nice.
all of a sudden, 12 years has passed, and I have no idea what's happened.
You know, your story is interesting because on the other show, and I'm going to do my best not to refer to the other show very often on this show, because but I think I think if you're interested in this kind of racing, in sim racing, and a lot of sim racers have a dream of doing it in real life, and think this is either a path or a method to either get to someone else to pay you to do it in real life, or to make you better at doing it in real life if you're going to spend your own money on it. Your story is interesting because you come from a very similar story to my real life racing family, where it was in your family genes, motorsport. But you didn't get to take it to the real life racetrack, where a lot of the people who I've had on the other show have, obviously. And that's interesting. I think that's, I don't know that that's the case for quite as many sim racers. I get the sense that a lot of sim racers didn't have that family background, but loved the idea of motorsports, and this was their entry drug to motorsports. And that's what I call this. This is the entry drug. This is like, I'm going to try a little bit of this stuff at a party, and then I'm going to get addicted and hooked. And not that I would know anything about that in real life. As a journalist, I cover those stories. That's what I always tell people. I've covered to other people in those stories.
Gotcha.
So when you first started, you were awesome right out of the box, right?
Nope, not
What?
even close.
How's that possible?
Not even close. To be fair, I think I've always been slightly above average at this from the get-go.
Okay.
At least when it came to what I would say was the start of this chapter of sim racing, which we'll say is 2013, 2014, in that sort of realm, when I got back into it and got myself a wheel and pedals for the first time.
Right.
Because I'd spent so much time absorbing it.
Right.
I'm a great person for watching and absorbing.
Right.
I'm terrible at being told something and absorbing, but I can watch and see and then try and sort of replicate. So when I first got out on track, I understood racing lines and breakpoints and apexes and all of that. So I at least had a leg up there. But at least from my iRacing journey, I started out at, for the first 3 to 6 months, sort of in that 1500 to 2000 iRating level, certainly above average.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to be, ashamed of, but certainly not right out of the gate, immediately rapid. I was, about 2 seconds off the sort of ultimate pace, and just had to sort of figure it out from there.
You're lucky, and I say this because anybody who starts on the sim before going real life racing, I consider lucky when it comes to sim racing, because almost everyone I've ever talked to who did it the other way, like I have, where I started in real cars and then went sim racing, if they don't get it ever, it takes them a long time to get it, because we sit in the sim and our first instinct is we want this to be exactly like our race car is. And even in the most, maybe in a $5 million Formula One sim, it's really, really close. But even those guys, I bet you, would tell you it's not 1 for 1. They're closer to 1 for 1. They're maybe 0.98 to 1. We're not close to 1 for 1, but we're remarkably close considering what the technology is that we can use in our homes. But we want it to be the same. We want that seat of the ass feel that it's really hard to get in sim racing, even with motion, even with belt tensioners. But when you start without the real life idea, you don't know what you want or what you're missing.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
So does that, when you coach, and we'll get into your coaching a little bit more, is that a big part of what you need to help coach people through sometimes?
Sometimes. A lot of people that I have coached before are actually primarily from a sim background, but not so many from a real motorsports background.
Got it.
There has been a few. Obviously, the big differences are you can't feel what you want through every part of your body. It's your eyes and your hands primarily is what you have to work with here.
Right.
And so a big part of what I do is I try and teach people to use their eyes effectively, see what's happening more than feeling it. So I still think that actually kind of applies once you go back into real motorsport. If you can see what you're trying to do better and have a really clear plan of where I'm looking, then the rest I think kind of falls into place. And that comes as well from other sports that I played.
Mm-hmm.
So I love my target sports, and I love my darts.
Mm-hmm.
I love cue sports, so pool, snooker, and I like golf as well. where a lot of what you're told is keep yourself sort of still, centered, and make sure that your eyes are looking exactly where they need to. And I kind of use the same sort of idea when coaching in sim racing, because we got a flat screen in front of us,
Right.
and so we need to be really conscious about what we're looking at for everything else then to fall into place.
Right. Two things I realize. Right now my real life motorsports is autocross. I don't know what you call it over in your part of the world, or if it's Gymkhana or solo. We call it solo tour autocross. And the one thing I notice now, after doing a whole much more sim racing and then kind of going back to do autocross, the one sense that I think we forget about, both definitely in real life, we never think about it in real life, and I think about it now. But one thing I think we forget about in the sim is the sense of hearing. And it is, I was hearing my tires on the autocross course like I never thought about hearing or listening. I didn't even think about listening for my tires. You hear them screeching, but you don't listen for like when they start and how loud they are and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm listening to that both on the sim. I picked that up from hearing some comment from Max Verstappen where he said, on the sim, I turned down all of my stuff and I just have my tires turned up. And maybe it's not all the way down, but that was like a moment for me. I did that in a sim, like, holy crap, that's a whole thing now. I can hear where I'm starting to break loose a little bit, and that's a sense that you have to add in. So that, and you also mentioned golf. Golf is very interesting because tons of real life race car drivers are golfers in their spare time, and I think it's the same fix, because with racing there is no perfect lap. There is no perfect round of golf. Even if you shoot a 59, which is the best professional round ever, there's always a 58 out there, right? So you're always achieving. And then the other thing about golf is, just like racing, you can hit that one shot per round that makes you feel like Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy for your folks. And you can say, I'm going to be awesome at this sport. And then you want to keep going and trying to get more of those awesome shots. Same thing in a racetrack, whether it be in the sim or real life. You can have one fantastic lap and know that, if I could just do that every time, if I could get good enough to do that every time, and it's just one after another, and it's the same type of practice, the same type of mindset. So that's, I think, why a lot of people gravitate to both racing and golf. So you were average to start. When I first started, I did not take this very seriously. I kind of went in kicking and screaming because I didn't think I was going to be very good at it, and I had young kids, and I held off for years. My best friend wanted me to go sim racing right back from when you started, back in the late 2005s, 2010s. He was like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's so much fun. You're gonna get something out of it. Like, I had a young child. I didn't want to. I knew if I got a sim, I'd get divorced, because I would spend so much time sitting in that seat that my wife would wonder, why am I not changing diapers? Why am I not helping with dinner? Why am I not doing anything? So I held off and held off and held off. And then in 2020, Alex was 15, I guess, needing less of my attention. And I finally gave in, and I started doing it. And I didn't take it really seriously. And I'm paying that price right now, because my iRating went in the tank very quickly. And I am now in the 500, 600 iRatings, and everybody looks at me like, oh, Jesus. But I have a B license, so it doesn't take anything to get a B license in iRacing. I have proven that. I am the poster child for you don't have to be good to move up the ranks in licenses. I quickly got a C license because I wanted to go endurance racing with my 24-hour team, which is why my buddy was trying to get me involved, because they needed another guy to do a stint or two on the 24s. And so I quickly got to that, and then I'm like, I'm at a C. I don't have to do anything. I didn't do many officials, and I went right away to GT3 cars, because that's what you needed to do in the 24s. Probably should have spent a lot more time in rookies, and so my iRating is in the tank now. I've heard you on your stream, by the way. Jamie streams. You can find him at Jamie Fluke on Twitch. Are you also on YouTube? Do you do on both at the same time?
I don't do both at the same time. I try and keep the YouTube for when I get around to more of the either short form stuff, really short form stuff, or the sit down long form stuff as well.
So you see his Twitch handle there on his graphic. Go check him out. And that's another thing I want to talk to you about. I got all these things popping in my head. But one of the things I've heard you talked about on the Sim is Smurf accounts.
Yes.
Most people who will be watching this will know what a Smurf account is. It's a second account for, a secondary account. Lots of reasons to do it. What is your opinion on why most people do a Smurf account? Let's start with that.
I think most people run a Smurf so that they protect whatever iRating that they've got on their main account, the one that they use for big events, big special events or whatever. Some people like multiple accounts for, and this was maybe more back in the day before we had a license split between sports car and Formula, where you had a sports car account and a Formula account kind of a thing, or whatever it may be.
Right.
And you'll find that some people can also, and this is what I used to use my old one for, doing just very different stuff, i.e., for me, it was use it as my stream account. And I would start from the back in races and still try and race it fair and clean, but it gives me more of an opportunity to create content, create moments, create something that's easily digestible rather than sticking it on pole and trying to win every race from the front where, okay, I mean, there's something in that, but it's not always the most exciting thing.
Sure.
So there's a variety of different ways we can go about it.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, creators who are using it to create great content and aren't going out to run people over and all that kind of stuff, I think there's a perfect reason to have a Smurf account for that. If I were to use it, I would use it to start back at whatever 1300 iRating is, because I'm in the tank right now. But I've decided my content is going to be, I've put myself in this hole and I'm going to dig myself out of it.
Yeah.
And I think there's some value in that, because I guarantee you that there are going to be people out there who have done exactly what I have. I'm doing some GT3 races, and I'm always in the bottom split because of my iRating. There's a ton of people doing GT3 races with under 1K iRating. So I am not the only person there. I don't know if this is their Smurf account and they're trying to mess around or whatever the case, but I know that I am not the only person in that world, and I joke that I'm going old to pro here, and I'll probably never get the pro unless I'm paying myself to do this, or my YouTube channel or Twitch channel start paying me to do it. But that is my goal. I want to be plus 5K. I want to be as close to 10K as I possibly can be. I mean, that's alien territory. What's above alien? I don't know, but it is crazy what some of these guys have and gals in the 5K and above range. My thought is on iRatings, anybody can get to 3K. That's not hard. I mean, it still take works, but anybody can achieve that with just doing a little bit of work, racing clean, getting your stuff done. 5K requires work. I think anybody can get to 5K, but it requires work. 5K to 10K, that's where you start getting to like work that is the level that most people will never have the time to do, or some sort of innate talent that just you get it fast. And am I kind of thinking the right when I think about the iRatings in that regard?
Yeah, I think you're pretty much spot on. I would love to sit down long enough with the theory that I could get my wonderful better half to 5K iRating, who's never done a sim race before. But I popped her in the rig back at the old sim center that I used to work at. And I'll always ask someone who's never done it before, all right, can you push this brake pedal to about 80% of its max force? Just say if you've got like just the basic sort of like motor skills almost for it, like do you have like a natural enough sort of aptitude for that? And straight away she did it. She's never sat in a sim rig in her life. Just okay, straight in. Like okay, right. With enough time and effort, I could absolutely get her to 5K.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't know, because a lot of it maybe comes down to how confident you are racing other cars, how like what's your risk tolerance, things like that. But as a like baseline 5K just on raw speed, yeah, I think most people that's sort of doable. In the same way, so I'm a massive and this is quite a recent thing. Like I've got big into running. I love running now. I hit my 30s, and of course, like anyone who hits their 30s, they need to find their vice to like, and so I was already doing sim racing, so I need to find something completely different, and
Right.
so that's running. So for me now, what I've always heard is it's humanly possible for nearly any healthy male runner to run a marathon in under 3 hours with
Wow.
enough time and
Sure.
dedication and practice and effort. And
Yeah, I
it
think
may
that's
take
probably
years, but
accurate.
and so that's my objective for this spring is to dip under the 3 hour mark for a marathon. I don't know if I'll do it, but
Right.
if it's not this year, maybe it's next year, maybe it's the year after, maybe it's however long down the line. But it's the same sort of thing where I think as long as there isn't anything truly holding you back,
Right.
then yeah, everyone's got at least that sort of base level of potential, if that makes sense.
I used to be well, I'm still a large guy. I am the height for a Formula One driver, but not the width. And I was a big kid as well. I was never, I was always stocky or husky, and so I've never been tiny. But at one point in time, I had gotten up above 400 pounds, which for a guy who's 5'6" is not good in so many areas. But I went through a bariatric surgery, and I got down to under 300 pounds, and I started doing, as I joked, I did triathlons. I wasn't a triathlete.
Gotcha.
That's like it's like, do you play golf or are you a golfer? I competed in a couple of triathlons. My goal was always complete, don't compete. I think that's a good mantra for any kind of person who's getting into anything like a marathon running or triathlon, and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. There are those thresholds in all endeavors where, some people are really talented and just get it fast, or some people can get really good without a ton of talent, but just hard work themselves into it. But then when you want to be right at the tippy toe, right at the sharp end of the stick, there takes either an enormous amount of work that a lot of people don't have time to do because they have lives, or a whole lot of talent, and that's just luck in the genes. What's your take on the Smurf account? We know what they are. We know why they kind of use it. What's your take? Let's just go with that.
I don't mind it if it's used in a way that isn't exactly how you would race on your main, i.e., try and stick the car on pole position and win the race.
Right.
I think if you're trying to do that, just run your main account. If you're trying to do something really wacky and really different, so either just like, all right, well, I'm not going to qualify for this race or whatever, and I want to create content, or it's a car that I've never driven before, zero practice. Oh, okay, fine. I mean, I would never really advocate for doing that either, but like I can see the merit for it. But if you're kind of cheesing the like iRating system, so say you're at, your main account is, I don't know, 10k iRating, and your Smurf account's on 5, but you still get to top split and you drive at the same level that you're at 10k. Well, someone like me who maybe is sitting half a second behind you is like, well, I'm getting beat by someone whose account says 5k, but in reality it's 10k. So I have a little bit of a like issue with that. And then for people who really don't take it seriously, like don't try and race with their best foot forward kind of a thing. So if you're starting at the back and just trying to mow through people on your Smurf, I'm not a fan of that either. And I've seen bits of that before. Most people are getting better at their behavior with that sort of a thing. And I've seen a lot of this over the years where the people, because it's their Smurf account, they just don't take any outcome particularly seriously. They don't care if they win or lose or have a good or bad race. So it doesn't then matter what happens to anyone else. And I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah. I didn't realize, because I was watching, I don't think, probably James Baldwin or somebody doing these, going into a rookie race to see, starting at the back, to see just how bad rookies are. Because, we always hear rookies are junk. And in many cases, they can be. But, and that's when I was like, okay, I understand why. And I didn't realize then until I met a guy who I raced with in real life, who was a 12-time iRacing Global MX5 Cup champion. Even in the rookie classes, rookie races, there are some high-end people who are just in the top split of those rookie races. Most of the rookies end up in the lower splits. I didn't realize how good the Global MX5 Cup drivers are in that top split. And, even in Formula V, the top split in Formula V, there are some guys who are 5, 6, 7K still driving Formula V because they just love driving Formula V. And to get the experience of how bad rookies are, you can't be a top iRating guy and go in there because you're just going to get into a race with a bunch of guys who are really freaking good at that particular car. So that way I get it. And I guess it's good then, because then the rookies really aren't having to race against those aliens who would just frustrate them and get them, get them to maybe quit and all of that kind of stuff. What do you think of the iRating system?
I like it if there wasn't Smurf accounts at all.
Yeah.
I think it'd be very good. I wasn't a huge fan of the road license split.
Okay.
In a weird way, it's de-incentivized me to race Formula, because I have to, like, my objective, which is still quite loose, but yeah, I kind of want to achieve 10K at some point.
Sure.
But either I need to do it twice over with the Formula account, or accept that I'm only really going to probably do it with one, which will probably be sports car. But if I saw a week where actually, maybe that combo does suit me, that's not going to contribute to me pushing the iRating that I want higher.
Right.
I have to do it twice over. So maybe if it was always that way, I wouldn't really have a problem with it. But because, like I got to 9.5 before the split, and to be honest, haven't progressed much further from that. It's been a little bit of a yo-yo in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I do like it. Where I think maybe some people find it frustrating is if they're on the cusp between top split and second split.
Okay.
And they end up yo-yoing about, so they're maybe slightly better than what they need to be, or what they are for the second split. They get bumped up to top split, where that jump is much larger between splits. Like there's no bigger jump than from first to second. And so they kind of struggle. They'll rock up the number 24 car in a 25 car split, and they need to beat 10 guys who are better than them just to like make iRating, and like it gets tough that way. Like I can sympathize greatly with them. I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect system, but I've always quite liked the iRating system. It sort of keeps races, for me, like just general day-to-day races, really competitive, and I'm all for that.
I'm guessing in the top split you guys have a lot less of this than we have in the lower splits, or in the last split, like I end up in a lot because of my iRating. But I wish there was a way iRacing could, like, this is the race for people who are taking this seriously, and this is the race for the people who are messing around. And because in the bottom splits, you don't get a choice. It is a crapshoot. Yeah, I might get, and I've been really surprised now that I jumped up to B license this season, because I want to race the the IMSA series. So I'm working to get to A, and again, proof that you don't have to have a great iRating to do any of that. But I've been really surprised in the GT3 races I've done, the fixed GT3 races, how clean it's been. Happy about it and unhappy about it, because that's how I gain iRating, is when people do stupid things and I get to drive around them. And I have had very few of those in front of me. But I wish there was a way to say, we're here to have fun, or this is going to be a fun race, and then this race is going to be for people who are really trying to act like this is real life and not do stupid things. It's hard, isn't it?
I think it's hard. I also feel, though, that maybe opens the door for some exploitation, where people who are there just for fun maybe will ruin the fun for everyone, kind of a thing.
Right, true.
So I think there's a possibility that could happen. So I guess if it's sort of serious for everyone, then more people are going to take it serious, and then people are going to take it fun and don't care about their iRating. They're probably still going to race the same way anyway, I would say. People who maybe don't race fair or don't race clean and don't care about the numbers too much, but they want to race against everyone, and that's where everyone is, then they're going to go that way with it, I think.
I keep having to remind myself that iRacing is a business.
Yeah.
And they need us to keep paying and coming back to keep in business. Because the other thing, I just watched a video last night of a guy who's like, I got out of rookies in three days. And I'm like, no, I know you want it. You don't always want to race an MX5 Cup or a Formula V, and you want to get into the better cars and that kind of thing. But in real life, you don't get out of rookies in 3 days. I mean, even if you have all the money in the world to go racing, and there are plenty of those people out there, and we lament this in real life, Jamie. It's the same thing. You even go to the Rolex 24 next weekend, in real life, or 2 weekends. You're gonna have guys, maybe not in the big race, but in the secondary races, who just got more money than sense. Yeah. We joke that the dentist drivers, or some young kid whose mom and dad got a lot of money and bought him a ride, and they're going to go out and do something stupid. I guarantee it's going to happen,
Yeah.
and they might not do anything on the broadcast about it, but everybody in the paddock's rolling their eyes and dropping F-bombs and shaking their fist like, why did we let this happen? Why didn't they spend more time in amateur racing or any time in amateur racing? So it's no different in real life, people. Let me put it out there. It is no different in real life. But I feel like iRacing, if they were to just require a full season in rookies, even if you have got your C license, even if they were just to require you 13 weeks before they allowed you to the instant C license or D license, I think is the first problem. Because I don't care who you are, if you've taken 3 days to get from rookies out and you start racing, you have no racecraft.
Yeah.
You just don't. That's not something you get unless, even if you came from real life racing, it's a different deal on the sim. So if they would just make you do a whole full, and even if you start at the end of the season, make you do one full season in rookies, I think that would change the service so much for the better.
Yeah. Well, fun fact, that this is even before my time.
Yeah.
That's how it used to be.
I know. I heard you say that.
Yeah, I think they only did license progressions at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, you could come in and, week 12 and get your SR and hit your minimum participation requirement and work your way up. But I think it was maybe the season or two before I joined in 2014 that was still in effect. I could be wrong with the specifics of it, but it felt like it was pretty close afterwards. But whenever I started, I made sure to just focus on one car a season for the first 3 or 4 seasons. It was like, all right, well, I started with the Mazdas and I joined, maybe it was a week or two before the end of the season. So all right, well, the next season was a condensed season because iRacing wanted to line it up more with the calendar, the real life calendar that we have. And so we finished more around Christmas. So that was a 6-week season rather than 12. And so I just did Mazdas for that. And then I progressed up to D license and I ran D-class cars for two seasons.
Sure.
And then went to C and yeah, and that's how I did it. I just focused on one thing at a time and just got more used to it as I went along.
Right. And you know what? I did it. I did exactly what I'm telling people. Well, maybe I didn't do it quite as... Yeah, no, I did it. I did exactly what... Because I wanted to be in those endurance races with my team. So I quickly moved up, did not spend enough time in the Global MX-5s, which I now do a lot of rookie races in that thing, even though I now have a B license. And it's helped me. So I came back after a couple of months off in January, or in July. Built a home-built rig that is a SimLab replica. There's a video on the channel if you're interested in that. And basically, SimLab actually has all of the dimensions of their stuff on their instruction sheet that you can download, even if you haven't bought the rig. So I bought out and bought a millimeter tape measure so I could be exactly spot on, and I replicated their 160 profile sim rig, right down to the millimeter, out of wood. And because I have a partner that I'm gonna be getting an aluminum rig from, but I wanted to compare the two because everybody talks about how wood's never as stiff or this or that, and I just wanted to do a comparison 1-for-1 in my brain so I could do some content on it. But starting in July, and I also have a home where I have a room for an actual sim rig, which I didn't before. but starting in July, I've really tried to take this seriously and realized how wrong I did it from the start. And if I had to do it over again, I would never do it the way I was, and I would never recommend anyone do it the way I've done it. So, so I've been going back and doing a lot more rookie stuff, even though I have that license. And I've also decided to, when I do GT3s, I'm focusing on one car, the Porsche. That was a whole other deal for me. I'd never driven a rear engine car anywhere before. The closest I got was a Pontiac Fiero, which was a mid-engine 4-cylinder car back in the late 80s. That was my one of my first daily drivers. But going from the MX-5 to and even the Lamborghini, the McLaren, which our team drove for a long time, to the Porsche was a whole learning experience for me. And then when I got to start doing GT3s, I'm now learning a car that I've never driven before and kind of suck at on tracks that I've never driven before. So I have to learn the track and the car. So I'm doubly screwed in this process. But I started going back and doing a lot of Formula V and a lot of MX-5, and that was the best thing I've ever done when I decided to kind of reset and start over. But I think if people would spend a full season in rookies, even if you start in season 12 and you can get out, do a whole season in rookies, go to a whole season in a D license class. Go to a whole season in a C license class, even though you're going to get out of it. I think you will learn more, be better, be safer around. And obviously there's no life or death consequences, but, sim safe. I think you're just going to be better, faster if you do it that way, rather than just jumping in the deep end.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Because, iRacing don't put each series into those specific license classes without any thought. They're
right
there at that level for a reason. So your rookie stuff is, okay, it's basically road going or as close to like your bare bones grassroots motorsports that you're going to get on the sim at least. So your MX-5, your Formula V, there's an M2 now, I think.
Right.
I don't even, I'm so slightly out of the loop of what's actually down there because I don't run that stuff anymore.
Right.
But it's there for a good reason. Like, it's there to help you. If you're starting out, that's where you learn. That's where you learn your car physics, your behavior of how the car moves around, teaches you to keep momentum through a corner, because if you're just, attacking the corners way too aggressively, a car like that doesn't have enough oomph behind it
right
to get you off the corner. So you have to learn to be smooth through the corners, and then you can translate that into a slightly quicker car in the D-Class series. That's a little bit more of a race car then at that point, usually, and then through into C, B, and A from there. And the races get longer, and your incident limit in all of your official races outside of the special events is the same. So you have to be cleaner as you go up through the license ranks. So yeah, I agree. If you start at the bottom, give yourself time to get a feel for it, because a lot of people in the rookie classes, outside of the goes obviously at the very top end of top split, a lot of those guys are in the same boat as you.
Right.
And so you're all kind of learning and figuring it out. And most people, they get out of rookies in 2 or 3 days and then work their way up. And they might be like fairly clean and can work their way out, but they're not really spending enough time to learn
right
what they're doing whilst they're doing it. Because if you're jumping around from car to car and series to series, you're not developing and building up that muscle memory and
right
that knowledge base of, all right, well, this is actually how I go fast. Going fast isn't about just driving as many cars as possible and hoping that you're just quick in all of them. No, there's a lot that you can take from car to car and from series to series,
right.
but you've got to learn. You've got to put the time into that in the first place.
In real life, we don't get to do 100 different cars on 100 different tracks at a time. That's not how people do it. And so when I'm treating now, since I restarted in July, I'm treating the simulator as a race tool, and as an actual sport rather than a game. But in the real life, and even if you have tons of money and you don't go and jump around from car to car. You don't go. There is still a progression, and you learn the one car you're driving, because that's the way you get best fast. And I think people, if they thought about it that way a little bit more, they might take their path differently if they're really trying to get good at this. So that advice is, focus on a car or a small handful of cars, which is what I'm doing now, which I didn't do before. And my improvement has been, I have a spreadsheet. We're going to do a whole show on the spreadsheet. And I've taken this from real world racing. The whole thing, you would hire a crew chief because they have a notebook. And that notebook has every session, what the setups were, what the lap times were, what they changed in the next session. I'm like, well, why don't I do this for sim racing? So I started a spreadsheet, and I have every session I have done since July is in the spreadsheet. What track, what car, what setup, what my lap time was, what the best lap in the session was, what my iRating is as I'm doing races, my safety rating as I'm going up and down, notes on how I felt in the car, what I did right, what I changed in the car is also what I tried to change on the driving style, what worked, what didn't. And part of it was I'm an anal retentive OCD kind of person. But the other part is when I get frustrated, like last week or 2 weeks ago when I switched to this Porsche, I thought I was just not getting any progress. My brain was like, God, I'm not getting this. I'm still 6-7 seconds off the pace of the fast guys. I'm not going to be on pace, but man, I should be 2 seconds slow, not 6 seconds slow. What's wrong with me? Then I went back and looked at the spreadsheet and realized that I was 15 seconds slow 3-4 weeks ago. Now I'm 6 seconds slow. I still got that last 4 seconds or 6 seconds is going to be a bitch to get.
Yeah.
But I've made progress. And now my brain's like, okay, I'm getting this. Get back into sim and do more. So for me, it's been a frustration help unstressed device to have this spreadsheet. And you don't have to go and do it to the level I'm doing it. But if you ever get frustrated, go back and look at some of your old results and then look at the new results and all of that. I want to talk with you. We're running up on time here. And I don't want to take too much of your time.
That's all good.
And I have another one behind us too, another podcast that we're recording this morning. But let me take a second here and thank a couple of people, and then I'll be right back. I want to talk about what a lot of people are putting up now about crappy driving standards and and how it should be monitored and all of that. So we'll do that in just a second. I want to take a moment to, again, welcome to the first episode of Inside the Sim Paddock. Brian Bielanski here. Really happy to be doing this new show on the Racing Network. Want to thank my partner, Full Send Sims. If you are here in the U.S. and you want to take your sim racing rig to the next level, Full Send Sims is the place to go. White glove turnkey service. They build the rig, they show up at your door, they build it in your location wherever it is. They'll make sure it's set up, they'll support you when you're done. They also have some great sim racing leagues in the Global MX5 Cup cars, and they have a progression league where you got to prove yourself in the old MX5 cars before they'll let you in the MX5 cars, and they all know each other, and many of them are real world racers. They've got guys who drive IMSA in this league. And so it's stewarded with live stewards. I'm one of those live stewards in the league. So if you don't want shenanigans, now we still have a little bit of shenanigans, but if you want the shenanigans policed, find a league, whether it's this one or some other one. Full Send Sims, great guys, great people. So there it is. You can find me on Twitch, Graybeard Sim Racer. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of content with me going from hopefully old to pro, or at least really darn better than I am now. Also doing an iRacing World Tour where I'm going to drive every car on and every racetrack on iRacing over the next several years. And along the way, we'll do some hosteds, and we're going to give away some free tracks and free cars and a bunch of stuff there. So check it out. There's a Discord channel and a Twitch channel and all of that. So, we've got 250 episodes of the other show, and we're going to do at least 250 episodes of this show. So buckle up, and we're going to have a good time with this. All right, back now with Jamie Fluke. High iRating guy, been doing this sim racing thing for more than a decade. He was in the first F1 league back in the day. Before we get to standards, pro sim racing today is kind of almost a little bit on the downturn. There was a heyday. And what do you, as a pro, what do you attribute that to?
So I think back in what was just called the dark times of COVID,
Yeah.
um, that was sim racing's opportunity to really break out of its shell and do something really really special. But we had a very limited window to get it absolutely spot on before Real Motorsport got back up and
Right.
going on its feet again. I don't think we got it spot on. I
Mm.
think we got it just yeah we just it was too much for us, maybe too soon. We didn't quite have the infrastructure in place to really scale things up. And so, yeah, the pro scene has sort of been on the slide then, maybe the last 2 to 3 years, I would
Right.
say.
Yeah.
Um, Mainly because people aren't watching. It's actually probably a question that I have for you more
Mm.
so than what you maybe have for me is obviously, if you've got the opportunity to race or to watch Real Motorsport or a sim race, you're probably going to choose Real Motorsport, right? If given the
Yeah.
choice.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the case for the majority of people. Even people at the high end of sim racing. I don't watch that much sim racing. If I want to be involved in sim racing, I want to drive.
Right.
And I have the ability to do so. So trying to find a way in which it really engages people is tricky. What we've seen in so obviously being across the pond, I see different content probably
Mm.
to you. I see different motorsport. The thing that's obviously stands out now is F1,
Sure.
and they did obviously a brilliant thing with Drive to Survive in terms of bringing new
Right.
people in and a new audience. But maybe for better or for worse. I mean, there's a lot of diehards who are like, oh, these new fans, they don't understand everything. I get that. I totally get all of it as well. But the more people watching motorsport, any of it, I think it is good for all of us.
Right.
We've never found a way to really sell sim racing at the highest level, like
Right.
how good everyone is and some of the personalities and the people so that we get invested in everyone's results. Nobody ended up really watching sort of like the big esports events.
Right.
And also because it's this very highly optimized thing, it's almost like a game of chess a lot of the time where everyone's like so millimeter perfect through
Yeah.
every corner, everyone's driving the same lines. We don't always get that really exciting racing. At least when we have a format that's so similar to the Big Brother, which is Real Motorsport.
Right.
So if we find a way to present it, pitch it, sell it in a way that almost that it's slightly less like Real Motorsport and very much its own
Right.
entity,
Right.
and treat it a little bit more like an esport, which is maybe slightly adjacent to what the idea of the show is.
Sure.
That's maybe where we get the pro scene to sort of evolve and grow.
Right.
Exactly how I would format that, I'm not sure. I've had many ideas over the years of how we could make sim racing esports like really really watchable just for people who aren't even necessarily involved in
Right.
it, but it would require like a very awkward different format maybe
Yeah.
that makes it
I,
very clippable. I don't know.
I've been thinking about that as well because I'd love to promote that. I'd like to be the promoter of that event, and I've got some ideas on that. And part of it is I think making sure that it's not just always the tippy top guys in the main event. Make sure there's some slots for maybe the local hot shoe who might not always get there, and have it be an in-person event where people in town can show up. I think we have a window of opportunity right now because of the focus that Max Verstappen has put on sim racing. The rest of the world, the non-sim racing world now understands what sim racing is better than they ever have. They may not completely understand it, but at least it's not foreign to people anymore. And when you watch Drive to Survive, you see these guys on their sim sometimes, and you hear the stories. I think so. There's a new window of opportunity here to do it right or to do it differently. And I think you're right. Taking something from the other esports and how they do it, I think, is an interesting idea. And I think if you did it in like a Formula series and a sports car series, had them working side by side, I think there's a way to do it. So another thing we're going to explore with hoping to put on the Racing Network at some point in time. But it all takes money. It just takes money. And the other thing is, I think any pro e-racing, motorsports, sim racing league needs to have a pathway to real life. That needs to be what the winner gets. If not a test, a full year ride, doing something in real life. Even if it's if it's a lower level, it doesn't have to be a high level thing. Even if it's F4 or Motorola, not Motorola. That's how old I am. The Pilot Challenge, Michelin Pilot Challenge. Wow, that's a name from 25 years ago. I just threw out there. I think that needs to be part of it too, so that the people in the real life, fans, non-sim fans, will say, well, one of these guys could end up racing in this thing I watched, on the regular TV. I think that needs to be a component of it as well. All right, as we wrap up here, also we've got the Twitch channel for Jamie. Jamie has a coaching service. Watching his Twitch channel, I've never had a coaching session with Jamie, but watching your Twitch channel, I can feel how people would coach, and because I hear you doing some kind of free coaching as you're doing your Twitch, and one of my dear friends is an IMSA driver who is a sim racing coach. He's my coach, and I believe that there are different coaching, and on my other show we do lots of coaching type podcasts. Every coach has a different way of doing it, and I may work with you for a year and get not as much as working with Morgan, my guy, for a year, because you will teach differently than he will teach. You may pick up on something I do differently than he picks up on something I do. So I always advocate for two things. You might not like this. One, you might want more than one coach, because they might teach you different things. And two, not every coach is best for every potential coachee, mentor. So, but listening to you on your Twitch as much as I have, I get the sense of how you would coach, and I think you have a really approachable style to the way you talk about sim racing, and I think that's really helpful. So so check out him, check out Jamie as a potential coach. Watch him on his Twitch. So let's make the transition to our last topic, and that is this idea that the driving standards have gotten worse. People need to be banned. We've seen the videos of people doing really ridiculous things, and people always want, and this is the same in real life too, by the way, the stewards never do enough, or they do too much. No, there's no perfect way to handle anything. And considering in most iRacing, there are no real life stewards. You've been doing this for 10, 12 years now. Is it worse now? Is it the same now? Is it not any worse, but because we have YouTube and Twitch, people could talk about it more? What's the deal?
I do think it's probably got worse.
Okay.
At least for as long as I've been around. At least back whenever I was sort of starting out, there just weren't so many people doing it. So it was more like your hardcore, truly dedicated people who like lived and breathed all motorsports, not just sim racing. It's become more accessible and a little bit easier to get into, and that just brings more people in. If you sort of open the window for what's possible in terms of getting into and getting started with sim racing, then yeah, you bring a wider group of people, and towards the bottom end of that, you'll probably see more unsavory stuff, probably. Even at the top end, I think it's got maybe over time just that little bit more, I'm trying to find the right word for it, but like hyper competitive. That sort of like very egotistical, macho, I have to be the best no matter what. There's always been a bit of that, but maybe not quite as pronounced and as clear to see as it is now. And I think also because the depth of competition is so much deeper than what it was whenever I started, the gaps for everything are so much smaller. So everyone has to find a different way to get ahead. You can't just do it on raw pace. You're going to have to, get the elbows out and start racing people really hard. So, so there's a bit of that. But yeah, I think in general, yeah, the standards have maybe just slipped a touch, especially with so many people now on the service.
I wonder also, it seems like it's even literally in the last couple of weeks or months. Sometimes I wonder, is it, people have gotten new people on the service because they've gotten stuff at Christmas. But those people wouldn't be in the splits that are being covered here by the high-end streamers and video creators, because those folks aren't in rookies. They're not making so it's not that it's just rookies coming in. It's people at a higher level who've decided to lose their minds and treat this differently. What's the solution?
Good question. I actually think a lot of that sort of thing, it does happen this time of year. You'll not see the same thing, I think, happen in 3 or 6 months' time because it's end of the year. There's a lot of young lads, I would say, who have a real background, a real motorsports background, and aren't racing over the winter break. And for them, it is a little bit of a jolly and a bit of a hack and a bit of a good time, and they're not super worried about the standards. Plus, as well, the stuff that I've seen over the last few weeks, it's primarily actually with the new Porsche Cup car, which is brilliant to drive. I thoroughly enjoy it. Though the slipstream range, the draft range, is quite strong, and so it keeps the racing super close and super packed. And then the egos come out in the big strength of field races, and no one wants to lose. And then we get the combustible outcome that we typically do, that you probably wouldn't see if it was a car that offered absolutely nothing in that regard, and you just couldn't break through dirty air, for example. So I think it's a little bit of everything, is sort of like it's this big mixing pot of everything, and it's all went kaboom, really.
I also think it's a lot of people who might not always race GT3s who are trying to do the Rolex 24. They're doing a whole bunch of extra GT3 action now that they would.
Sure, yeah.
And maybe it'll happen again around a Le Mans time or a Spa 24, maybe the weeks leading up to those races. But it doesn't explain the stupid retaliatory. It's one thing to get in a race in a car you don't know, and you maybe make a mistake or you have a weird re-entry or something like that. But just this full-on, I'm going to go after you, I'm going to target you after I've been wronged. There's always been argy-bargy. Even in a race that I was in, just this GT3 race, as clean as it was, I made up a couple spots because two guys got into it. You could tell after the first 2 or 3 bits of contact that this was not going to end well. But they didn't come back afterwards, fix their car, and then go completely decimate the car they were effing around with. But I do find that there's a lot of that going on, and I don't know how iRacing does their bans and how that might work, but I do, because I've never been banned. I don't think I'll ever do anything that will require a ban. I'm not always clean. I do make mistakes. Sure, I may get penalized at some point. I'm never going to get banned because I'm never going to retaliate against them. And you would never think about doing that on a real racetrack because you kill people, you know. Yeah. But I think maybe, and maybe that's an interesting. I can get iRacing on and talk to them about bans and how they manage that kind of stuff. Because I feel like if the consequences were worse for that kind of stuff, that maybe that would happen less. But of course, iRacing needs to make money, and I get that too. You know, you don't want to ban people because that's $100 a year you're going to lose. You know, and every $100 is someone's, you know, part of someone's paycheck. So I completely understand that. So, well, this has been a great conversation, Jamie. I really appreciate it. I definitely want to have you on the show again. The last bit of questions I always ask are pretty simple here. Let's burn this, kind of a rapid fire, okay? What's your favorite sim race car to drive?
Lotus 79.
Wow. You know, a lot of people say that. I love that. What is your favorite track on the sim?
Virginia.
Nice.
Definitely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love that. What is if you were to drive real life, what would be your dream car to drive on the racetrack?
Ooh. That one stumped me. My true love and passion is actually rallying. So if I could get myself a Mark II Escort and take on some like hill climb stuff, I think that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
On a racetrack. GT3 is actually probably sort of that right sort of area for me. That's like my sort of happy sweet spot.
Yeah.
Anything quicker than that, I'm not sure my neck could handle it.
Yeah. I want to drive Spa.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up racing at Road America real life, so that's my North American pantheon, but I would love to drive Spa someday. Very cool. What's your daily driver?
Ford Fiesta ST.
Nothing wrong with that. Dream daily driver?
Ooh, dream daily. Audi R8.
Nice. Nice.
That'll be good fun.
You mentioned Rally. Episode 3 coming up here in a couple of weeks is a whole episode on the EA Sports WRC platform. There's a streamer I found. We had a great conversation about it, rallying. I grew up in Wisconsin, driving in snow and dirt. Never done a rally before, but it seems like a really cool platform, so we did a whole show on that. So that's coming up down the road. So, Jamie, thank you.
Not a problem.
You're a pro sim racer.
Pleasure.
This is your opportunity to thank some folks, whoever helps you do all the stuff that you do. The floor is yours.
Floor's mine. I mean, got to thank everyone that sort of got me to this point. Though I'm not with them now, the Apex Racing guys, I was with them for a decade. They taught me pretty much everything that I know. So, big shout out to those guys. I do bits of coaching as well through Virtual Racing School, and they're helping me out with a couple little bits here and there as well. I use all of their equipment as well, so I'll give them a shout out as well. And then if you're looking coaching for myself, the website, jamiefluke.com /coaching. I love coaching. I love what I do. And that's probably the best place to get me. As for anything else, a special shout out, I guess, to my lovely better half who tolerates my sim racing desires and the mad passionate hobby that's now kind of like my full-time thing, I guess, and she loves it as well. So
that's good.
Yeah, big shout out to her.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you taking the time. Definitely have you on the show again. There's so much more we could dig into, and I appreciate you being here.
Not a problem. Thank you very much, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 1 of Inside the Sim Paddock. Episode 2 next week is going to be fantastic. We've got Daniel Newman from Daniel Newman Racing going to be on the show, and we're going to talk all about the cool stuff that he does. So that's coming up on episode 2. We've already talked about episode 3. It's going to be about rally. So that's all coming ahead. If you want to be on the show, if you want to help sponsor the show, give me a shout out. It is simracerbrianb@gmail.com. Hit me up there. And keep watching the show. Like, subscribe, leave comments. All that stuff helps the algorithm, so more people find us, and we have a whole bunch more fun. That's going to do it. I'm Brian Bielanski. Have yourself a great week. Stay safe out there, and go drive your sim.